Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. What if Naruto had cheat code on the gamingverse? Movie. Naruto was a interesting girl, she was pretty knowledgeable in RPGs apparently too.
Why? Well, she had, just in case she found a dungeon, worked on a sturdy new armor for herself, made of leather she got with Henge no Jutsu in a shop. It took the form of a heavily padded, leather jacket with arm bracers for the lower legs and a headband akin to a forehead protector but made of leather.
The latter she only put on after they were at Training Ground 14 where they would be making the dungeon and go through it. So, that dungeon, what is its name? Asked Hayate, thankful that his sickness wasn't then he coughed hopelessly. It's named, King Slimester's Country. Think it could be open air dungeon? Answered Naruto, looking over to the Jonin that accompanied her and Hinata.
Possible. Also, Slimester, perhaps it is a dungeon filled with slimes. Responded Yugao, still slightly reeling from seeing from when she had been given that ability by Naruto. She thought initially that Naruto misunderstood something, but after she and Hayate read through the entire tutorial it was clear that Naruto didn't. It was as she said.
Then it will be easy, right? Asked Naruto hopefully, excitement making her jump most of the way. It was a bit strange to be honest. Well, the level is 1 to 5 in this dungeon, and the tutorial says that the mid-boss is only about 2 levels higher than the strongest, regular mob and the boss is another 2 levels stronger. So you two should be fine. Explained Hayate, looking over the shoulder of Naruto. Or rather over her head, she was so short seriously. Alright people. Let's be careful even so alright. Stated Yugo as the two academy students nodded, though Hinata wasn't as pumped as Naruto was. Arriving in the area, labeled, Training Ground 14. By the prompt they all got. Does that happen each time you get into a named area? Asked Yugo confused, looking at the text box with a small information box underneath. It basically said that the area itself was like gear for training, enhancing the experience gain by 20% if it was true. Yup. But that is the first time that there was a bonus to area. Explained Naruto and the two Jonin frowned a bit. Naruto. See if this bonus also holds true for experience points earned in dungeons. Instructed Yugo and, after a confused look sent toward the older woman, Naruto opened the details window. Yup, it is. Confirmed Naruto and both Jonin had to hold a smirk, that was going to be easier than thought. So, should I make it now? Asked Naruto, looking to the two adults with those huge, blue eyes of hers. It was a bit chilling how she could make you want to please her with that stare. Alright. Let's get this started. Stated Yugo, earning her a cheer from Naruto. Alright. Instant dungeon creation activate. Shouted Naruto, a ball of energy flying from her hand before exploding high above them and forming a half-sphere around them. When the field had been established, which encompassed the entire area, a bright flash blinded them for a moment. Finally, when they could see again they were on a large hill with rolling fields of grass all around them. Off in the distance was a large castle which was clearly the dungeon's primary boss area from what they could see. Then, before them appeared a message. King Slimester's Country, bonus, plus 20% experience points. Current level. Fields of Slimester boss requirements. Kill, small blue slime, 0/10 kill, small green slime, 0/10. Kill, small red slime, 0/10. I guess that means there are levels to this dungeon. Commented Yugo with crossed arms. Did that mean that the overall level would also raise once they cleared this? Well, it would certainly help. It would certainly help with the training for the kids. Let's be careful we don't know what those slimes could have for abilities. Noted Hayate while unsheathing his own sword. They moved through the fields, not seeing any monsters yet until they come over another hill and they could see a small river that flowed by. At first there were no enemies until they come to roughly 20 meters in front of the river. On the surface of the water appeared a oozing, thick substance that quickly moved over the surface in their direction. Once it left the water they could see what it was by name, small blue slime, LVL1. The monster was roughly half Naruto's height, the shortest out of the team, was a baby blue color and a spherical form. It actually looked cute the way it wobbled toward them, but it was hostile which was shown by its name being shown in red. The problem it had. It was roughly as fast as a snail. First mob and we could hold a training season here for hours before it comes at us. Naruto, stats. Ordered Yugo and Naruto nodded quickly. Observe. commanded Naruto, and before her appeared a text box for the small monster. Small blue slime. Level 1 class, liquid life form. Special ability. Encounters 1 HP, 200 CP, 10 STR, 12 VIT, 5 DEX, 2 INT, 0 WIS, 0 LUK, 3 DEF, 1. Description. A small slime native to the country under King Slimester. Blue slimes are native to water, but you don't know more. Fight more of them to learn more. They all stared at this, then back at the slime, which was probably the slowest thing they would ever encounter. Do we have to kill it? I feel sorry for the little guy, asked Naruto, not understanding how something like that should be a treat to them. She had seen freshmen at the academy with higher levels and stats. Hell, even fangirls had higher stats. I know what you mean. I checked several civilians with that ability, and the only ones with a comparable level and stats were babies, explained Yugo, not feeling right to kill this little guy. But they had to, if they wanted to progress through this. That was when the slime suddenly spit a torrent of water from its body, shrinking slightly but hitting Naruto hard. Naruto fell to the ground. It was more surprise than it was the force of the water, to be honest, and looking to her own HP, 2 points did she lose just now. Okay, it is hostile, but that was just sad, stated Naruto with a frown before grabbing one of her kunai. This is gonna hurt, but you hurt me too, she stated firmly before running forward. Now knowing that it was using water as a means of attack, Naruto was able to use her high HP and defense to tank the attacks until she was before the slime and begun to cut into it. Surprisingly, the kunai did little to damage it. A pop-up appeared before her and she found the Y. Discovered ability of Slime, Class Mobs, Liquid Body. This ability reduces damage through weapons by 90%. Naruto pouted. She did damage, but despite all, the slime had 200 HP. Then Hinata decided to go in herself. She decided to check if something else was more effective and hit it with her Juken, which made ripples appear in it before its back exploded, reducing a lot of its health. Ping. You discovered a weakness. Slimes are weak against chakra-based attacks. They looked at this new message while the slime, now down to 69 HP, begun to move toward the water again. That was, until Naruto jumped in front of it and gave it a good kick, sending the slime flying to splatter against a tree. And then it just vanished into a flurry of blue shards like glass. Did you just kick the slime to death? Asked Yugo, bewildered. Naruto bypassed its skills and just killed it by kicking it into a tree. Naruto jogged meanwhile, ignoring the question, up to the spot where she found a small amount of money and a flask with a blue substance. Yugo-sensei. What is that? Asked Naruto, confused, holding up the substance, and Yugo walked up to the girl to examine it. Observe, she muttered, and before her appeared a window with the information. Blue slime essence, common quality, class, ingredient. Description. A sample of the material that blue slimes are made of. Can be used for potion crafting, or for the familiar crafting skill. If consumed in pure form, it restores 20 HP. They all looked at it with mixed feelings. First of all, this must be the worst healing item ever, especially since Naruto, at level 10, had more than 130 times more HP than this would restore like this. But there was another thing. There is a skill to make familiars and potions. Asked Hinata what the others thought. There were such skills. Let's gather more and then experiment, cheered Naruto, and run off the moment she realized this. Everyone else just sighed. Energetic little girls that can tank you to death were really the last thing they needed. They met many more of those small slimes. They appeared to all be around waters. If they were blue though, from the grass come from time to time a green one. Hayate checked their progress. King Slimester's country, bonus, plus 20% experience points. Current level. Fields of Slimester boss requirements. Kill, small blue slime, 13/10. Kill, small green slime, 4/10. Kill, small red slime, 0/10. Alright, cough, seems like the blue slimes were enough now. He concluded before watching Naruto kick one of them into a tree again. There goes number 14, he guessed. But we only got 8 of those file thingies, protested Naruto to this, and he sighed in resignation. And some people wondered why he didn't take a genin team. Why again? Naruto, this is essentially a mission of sorts. To get past this level we need to kill 10 slimes of another 2 colors. Only then will we most likely get to an area with more powerful slimes. reprimanded Yugo, the little girl who looked a bit dejected at it. You can do this later again, Naruto, so just go with the actual goal. Tried Hinata to make her friend understand what she really ought to concentrate on, but it was hard with Naruto being herself. Finally the tomato gave in and they left for the grasslands where the green slimes probably would be. Slimes gave rather lackluster rewards, mainly few XP, a bit of money and once in a while the slime essence crafting item. In other words, they were just trash monsters that were put here apparently for the purpose of very low-level users of the ability. Well, that is unless you are Naruto, who had in terms of luck, she got 8 vials of this kind of item, 6 blue slime essence, and 2 green slime essence vials as well. The only problem was if they managed to get their special abilities running. Blue slimes were medicals and could regenerate by contact with liquids as well as regenerate others by giving their own HP up. Green slimes on the other hand had an acidic property, causing light acid damage to what touched them. This was where Naruto had an advantage over Hinata. You see, while the sewing skill sets were normally just to make armor, but at a certain level, 30, one could add specific properties to the items. With every 10 levels from then on one could add an additional property to an item one made. All her equipment had acid and fire resistance. Her kunai were wrapped up with leather bands that had the same effect on them. Why? Because acid was annoying and the most harmful to equipment, while Kabakufuda exploded and the fire destroyed the kunai more than the actual explosion. Therefore she could actually get her kunai back if she used Kabakufuda. Therefore she was the best at kicking green asses. It was when they finally did take a break that Naruto begun to look through some more functions. First of all she found there was a bestiary. It among others listed several ninja under their distinct ranks and expertises, but only if she had used observe on them. Funnily enough, Haruno Sakura was the poster child of the fanatic fangirl class. Uchiha Sasuke on the other hand was named emo genius in the bestiary. Yugo and Hayate, as well as the Hokage, were named under the boss list of characters with no data except what she herself knew. But that was when she found something strange. Yugo-sensei, what is a Jinchuriki? Asked Naruto confused, seeing herself under that class in the bestiary. Yugo and Hayate simultaneously spit out the water they were drinking and stared at the confused-looking Naruto. Naruto, where did you hear that word? Asked Yugo, not liking where this was going. The bestiary has that word, and a picture of me is on the example field, she told her team leader and, before Yugo could stop her, clicked on the page. Jinchuriki. HP, CP, Classification, Boss. Description. Jinchuriki are the 9 humans in whom the 9 Biju are sealed in. Those give their jailers tremendous perks such as accelerated healing, enhanced strength and durability as well as an array of associated elements if existing. At the present all but one of the Biju are sealed in humans. Currently known Jinchuriki include Uzumaki Naruto, Kyuubi Jinchuriki, Uzumaki clan. Naruto stared in disbelief at this information. Her face played many different emotions. Shock, fear, anger, rage, and finally, she began to cry as she realized that her, as the one who contained the Kyuubi, was the sole reason they hated her. But then she frowned. Are sealed in that indicated that she was more of a jail to the fox rather than the fox sealed into a human form, so, why? Yugo sighed while Hayate, with a stoic face, took a plank of wood and begun to hit himself with it. Yugo-sensei, you knew. But why did no one tell me? Asked Naruto distressed. It was not making sense to her, not at all. Seriously. Why her? Why the newborn, cute, little redhead who hadn't been a few minutes old before that giant fox begun to have a fit? Yugo winced at the desperation in the girl's voice. It wasn't surprising. Getting this information in this manner must hurt. But, while she seemed desperate and confused, it seemed she didn't panic. It was more hurt to be honest. Yugo attributed this to her gamer ability. Yes, I knew. Sorry Naruto-chan, but the Hokage gave strict instructions to not tell anyone below Chunin rank. He wanted to prevent in that way that the other children would make rush assumptions, but sadly the adults still managed to make them have a negative view of you even so. But you aren't the fox, you are his jail and there is no question about it. Yondaime-sama was a sealing master after all. She tried to consolidate the girl while Hinata looked on a bit stunned at hearing her friend was the prison of the Kyuubi itself.
Wait, why does that make people hate Naruto-chan? If the seal is placed on her, doesn't that mean it needs her to keep the Kyuubi at bay? asked Hinata confused, being well versed enough in the art of Fuinjutsu, or its theory, to know that seals that were placed on living beings were reliant on the will of their bearer. Either the sealed object, or being, would break out, or be lost.
Yugo sighed, slightly relieved that Hinata understood, and Naruto glommed her instantly in a hug. Hinata found herself the victim of Naruto crying. Her friend had nearly feared she would reject her based on this. You were right, Hinata-chan, but sadly humans rarely think straight and fear what they don't understand. Fuinjutsu is a rare skill that only few would follow, and the civilians don't know anything at all. Explained Yugo sadly to the two girls. There is another reason, stated Hayate, coughing a bit harder than needed but mostly in an effort to prevent it from happening while he explained. Many villages see Jinchuriki just as weapons. As long as they can be sent to kill, they don't care about their mind. Sanagakure's Jinchuriki, who holds the Ichibi for example, was repeatedly targeted for assassination and subjected to reject to make him bloodthirsty in exchange for his sanity. Explained Hayate sadly, knowing of the boy's past. That is horrible. Why would they do that? Asked Naruto, horrified that people would do that to anyone. Many, Naruto-chan. While you become a Jinchuriki because Yondaime-sama only could seal it in you, the Kazekage sealed the Ichibi in his own son, before he even was born. In fact, he was made a Jinchuriki to be a weapon, and a sympathetic or empathic weapon wasn't going to work for his machinations. Explained Yugo sadly, revulsed by what some people were willing to do for power. The Kazekage, Orochimaru, Uchiha Itachi, 3 names, 3 people who did the unthinkable for power. Naruto suppressed a growl in her throat. This was wrong. Why did people things like that? While her mind could think through those emotions, they weren't hysteria, not crippling fear, it was sadness, anger, confusion, and so much more.
Did she know that there were worse people in the world? Sure did, that old man Danzo for example. Did she care? No, she didn't. It was wrong, and she silently vowed to change this. She would, if need be, grind her level up to level 999. 999 if it was needed to beat that Kazekage guy, but she would beat him beyond silly for this. Yugao could almost see Naruto's determination, but then blinked when Naruto received a quest window. Those things were awfully convenient at times. Quest alert. Surpassing the golden sand. Description. The Kazekage is a heartless monster. Become stronger than him and show him who is boss. Quest. Reach level. Requirements for failure. Death before reaching the goal.
Reward. 50. 000 Express. 500. 000 Rio accept? Yes. No. Naruto was for a moment stunned, since this was the most vague but at the same time most rewarding quest she ever got. Not even the level she was supposed to reach was yet known, but perhaps that was because the target could change with the Kazekage getting stronger too. Even so, she pressed yes, determined to do it. Yugo hung her head. Hayate banged it on that slab of wood again, and Hinata giggled at her friend accepting a quest like that. Well, I guess now we have a new goal. Make Naruto-chan, and Hinata-chan as a consequence, into cage-level juggernauts, even if just by level. Stated Yugo, laughing at the dumbfounded looks the two girls gave her. Well, before we tackle this, let's eat. Remarked Hayate before the small group continued the small break in their quest to vanquish the monsters. XXXXX000XXXXX 2 hours and 24, small green slime mobs later the group had finally found 10, small red slime mobs. Those were surrounding a small, rather broken-looking blacksmith in which fire still burned. Alright, that is the only spawning point of those guys in the whole area. Stated Yugo in slight annoyance at how they had to traverse to the entire other side of this whole area before reaching this place. Can't help it, Yugo-sensei. They like heat perhaps? Asked Naruto, looking at the small slimes that were no larger than the previous ones. The anomaly come from a single larger blob. Medium red slime was its name. It was apparently the stronger stock monster of that kind. A mini-boss of sorts, or just to make the whole thing a bit harder. So, tutorial level? Asked Hinata, looking to the others who nodded briefly. It was nearly like an insult to them, but then again they were talking about a dungeon that was geared to, at least, level 4 players. Therefore this thing was just a tutorial under the assumption that they weren't all that strong. With that information, they attacked. The damage they did was relatively low in case of the girls, Yugo and Hayate not attacking themselves.
It was training for the two of them, so it was bad for Yugao and Hayate to use their over-the-top damage points to obliterate anything in the way. Hinata also found that the slimes reacted differently to her strikes than the blue or green ones once she used her Yukin style. What they did, the blots of slime shooting out backward exploded into fire upon impact.
Also another thing. They were volatile to fire. The moment they were hit they exploded and burst into flame. A chain reaction was the result with Hinata killing pretty much all of them in one go. A few seconds passed before Naruto ran to where the larger slime had been. "Hey! There is a jutsu scroll!" shouted the Naruto and they all went there quickly. Kaden. Kakyo no Jutsu Scroll, Class, Skillbook. Rarity. Common description. A scroll with instructions on performing the ninjutsu, Kaden. Kakyo no Jutsu. This technique is seen by many as an intermediary step toward the stronger, Kaden. Gokakyo no Jutsu, and the more numerous, Kaden. Hosenka no Jutsu, of higher levels. When used, this technique will fire a small ball of fire from the user's mouth. With every 10 levels of mastery this will allow for an additional fireball. Once mastered, Kaden. Hosenka no Jutsu, or, Kaden. Gokakyo no Jutsu, can be learned. Effect. Teaches, Kaden. Kakyo no Jutsu, +10, Whis and Int. They all looked to each other at that piece of information. Alright, Hayate and I both know that jutsu already. So, who of you wants to learn it? Asked Yugao the two girls. It was a pretty good jutsu to start with learning Kaden and, considering the ability, this would actually work out very well. Anyo, I think Naruko-chan should take it. Confessed Hinata, surprising Naruko with that proposal. Seeing the look on her friend's face, Hinata quickly went to explain. I already have an offensive technique, you don't, right? And you have much more chakra than me. Explained Hinata and Yugao nodded in agreement. Are you sure? Perhaps this is something like an anti-boss key item or something, you know? In some games they give you this item that can help you greatly fight them. Asked Naruko and the others turned to each other but nodded. With that Naruko picked up the scroll and pressed on accept when the prompt come whether she wanted to learn the jutsu. Information flooded Naruko's mind as the ninjutsu was taught to her by the scroll. She smirked but stopped when they all noticed a message appear. Save zone conquered. Congratulations, by defeating all enemies in the area the smithing skill tree is now available and you can use the blacksmith option to craft your own items of ores. Benefits. Metal crafting is available. Access to Slimester Furnace has been enabled. Skill points are made usable to obtain new blood type skills.
They all stared at this new bit of information and Naruko quickly called up the tutorial about those blood type skills that were mentioned.
Blood type skills. Blood type skills, also better known as Kekkei Genkei, are normally limited to certain bloodlines. But during a recent update, the gamer ability allows you now to harness their power too, given that you invest skill points into the respective ability. List of available Kekkei Genkei at the present: Uzumaki Naruto. Byakugan, White Eye. Dojutsu, 0/10 Hyuga, Ice Release, Futon, Suidan Combination, 0/10.
Jiden Magnet Release, Futon, Doden Combination, 0/10. Chakra Chains Inherent Skill, to be awakened, 0/10.
Hinata. Hyuga, Ice Release, Futon, Suidan Combination, 0/10. Futon, Boil Release, Kaden, Suidan Combination, 0/10. Byakugan, White Eye. Dojutsu, 4/10, Ranton, Storm Release, Raiden, Suidan Combination, 0/10. Available skill points. Naruko. 1 Hinata. 0 availability is decided by elemental compatibility, whether or not one element is already possessed, or relationship with a clan. One must at least be on friendly terms with a clan head to have access to their Kekkei Genkei. They all stared at this bit of information. The impossible, once again, become possible. Stealing Kekkei Genkei without risking your life or pissing off the people by killing their clansmen and taking their eyes. Well, depending on what kind of Kekkei Genkei at least.
Cool, I can have a Kekkei Genkei? Asked Naruko excitedly as she bounced up and down. Yugao on the other hand tried to make some sense of the Kekkei Genkei. The Byakugan was available because Hisashi was actually a supporter of Naruko. He liked the young girl who actually managed to push his daughter out of her shell. The rest had only in common that they either had Kaden or Futon in them. the former newly learned so, the latter had to be Naruto's actual affinity.
Alright, calm down, Naruto, ordered Yugo, the young girl who looked up to her in a manner that made it look like a puppy asking why. We will discuss this later, Naruko-chan, for now leave that option alone, ordered Yugo, inciting a pout from Naruto, who didn't want to wait but still let herself be pursued to do so. Alright, we met the conditions to fight the boss, so let's go, stated Yugo, and the others nodded.
Interestingly, they got directed toward a large wall that had separated them from the city directly around the castle by an arrow. That was probably the next dungeon in this set, or the next stage. Suddenly the ground began to shake as a large being jumped down from the wall. This being was actually a humanoid being, though decaying and zombie-like looking. It wore a silver plate armor and wielded a rusty sword in one hand. On its helmet it had a plume stand up, and oozing out of its right eye was a black liquid.
Boss appearance. Necro Slime Knight, Sir Alberon, 6.
Everyone starred as the undead, controlled by the slime in its head, begun to move toward them, wobbling slightly as its sword was being dragged behind it.
A zombie? Asked Naruto, bewildered. That didn't fit in this setting at all.
Well, more like a slime controlling a corpse, countered Yugo as they prepared for it. Then, it finally rushed forward with a gurgled scream, becoming much faster. Scatter, shouted Yugo as she and Hayate dodged, with Naruto and Hinata following soon after. Naruto had the bright idea that moment to use her newest jutsu.
Kaden. Kakyo no Jutsu, shouted the diminutive gamer, as she shot a small ball of fire at the enemy who had, according to Yugo's check, 2,000 hydrogen phosphide. To their surprise, the attack, as weak as it was, took 232 points out of him and charred a part of the body, who now fixed its gaze on Naruto. She got the aggro of the boss, and so he now focused on her as the person who dealt the largest amount of damage to him so far. Naruto didn't have time to fire another jutsu at the corpse who was attacking her tirelessly. Hinata tried to hit it with the Byakugan, but the physical strikes were blocked by the armor of the corpse, only dealing 20 points of damage for each strike. Yugo and Hayate watched, trying to find out whether Naruto would be able to get herself out of that predicament or not. To their surprise, yes, she could. Just as she was struck, a puff of smoke appeared and she was replaced by a nearby branch of a tree. Further away from the night she reappeared and went through hand signs before firing yet another Kaden Kakyo no Jutsu at the boss. The battle went on like that, Naruto having a pretty much lonely fight with the boss because Hinata couldn't perform Kaden ninjutsu yet, while Hayate and Yugo didn't want to take away the victory of Naruto by being the boss level fighters they were. It took half a dozen hits with the jutsu and 2 critical hits before it was defeated finally, with Naruto sighing in relief. A victory message appeared, but only before Naruto and Hinata. Apparently it knew that neither of the adults did anything. Congratulations. You defeated Necro Slime Knight, Sir Alberon. Reward. 1000 Express. Access to Boss Arena. Dungeons unlocked. Access to Slimester's Capital Slimania. Unlocked. +1 skill point. As if on cue, the gates opened to the next area and Naruto went to pick up the loot from the boss. It was a boss treasure key, which they found the chest for quickly. In the chest they found 10 Ryo, which Naruto was given because she pretty much soloed the underleveled boss. There was also a iron chain mail, a sort of shirt made of hundreds of interlocked rings. It was supposed to be equipped under the jacket or similar things, so Naruto did just that. The third item was a training staff, a two-handed staff weapon. It increased the experience gained when training a blunt weapon related skill by 10% and the overall experience points through fighting by 5%. Since it also had 20 points of damage it would deal. Unlike Naruto's kunai, she quickly equipped it as her primary weapon while the kunai becomes secondary. The last item was a Black Slime Soul. This piqued their interest. Black Slime Soul. Rarity, legendary type, consumable. Description. A unique orb containing the powers of a black slime, also known as the Necro Slime. When used, this item raises chakra, int and wis increase by level up by 40% and gives the skill, Soul Taker, to its user. Cannot be unequipped. Naruto looked a bit horrified at that name of the perk, but on Yugo's insistence pressed on it to investigate. Perk. Soul Taker. Prerequisite, Black Slime Soul. Effect. Passive. Learn skills and jutsu of defeated enemies. Active. Absorb HP or CP equal to 20% of dealt damage. When HP or CP on maximum, this becomes a permanent raise in points.
Naruko's eyes widened and the other gaped at that. Basically, Naruto now had the possibility to obtain an ability that would make Hatake Kakashi, the copy ninja, look harmless in the copycat division. Should I use it, or should I sell it? Asked Naruto, knowing that legendary would mean this item was worth a shitload of money. It was perhaps even unique, but that would make it even more valuable to keep.
I say use it. Any skill of that sort would be perfect to use, stated Hayate. Just her ability to live the world like a game was groundbreaking. This was basically cheating the system. Then again, her ability was cheating the system known as life, so no big difference there.
Naruto nodded and tapped it with her finger, activating the window to use the item itself. Seconds after confirming it, the orb exploded into a shower of sparkles which then were promptly absorbed by Naruto, who looked a bit startled by this. Weirdest feeling in ever, muttered Naruto, shaking her head to get rid of the discomfort of this strange item activating. She didn't feel any different, perhaps because it was a perk, or perhaps because it was passive. Anyway, a check on her status window confirmed her fourth perk. It also informed her now that the first perk was her status as Jinchuriki, while the second in the list was actually that she was the heir of the Uzumaki clan. Okay, she nearly forgot that the bestiary mentioned her being of a ninja clan. Anyway, let's get back until tomorrow, stated Hayate, coughing slightly at the end, and the others nodded. With Naruto activating the instant dungeon escape skill, which had no penalty due to not having entered the city yet but having defeated a boss, they found themselves back on the training ground. Alright, you two go home for now, Hayate-kun and I need to report to Hokage-sama. And don't go around spending those points except for you, Hinata, if you can use them on your Byakugan. Ordered Yugao, the two girls who both nodded, albeit in Naruto's case begrudgingly. Then something occurred to her. Wait, can't I go with Hinata-chan and ask Hisashi-sama if he would be okay with it? Asked Naruto curiously, and Yugao stopped for a moment at that proposal. She nearly forgot that Naruto was on very good terms with the Hyuga head because she actually helped Hinata improve better than him. And Naruto rarely trained actively with her until now. Yugao gave her permission to the little Operation Byakugan, as Naruto called it in her head, as the two children run off, Naruto dragging Hinata after herself a bit. They are really cute like that, right Hayate-kun? Asked the purple-haired woman, and her boyfriend, fiancé, nodded in agreement to that. No questions there, though it was more of a puppies playing together cute to be honest than a romantic cute. XXXXXOOOXXXXX. Naruto and Hinata made it to the compound rather quickly, particularly because they took the ninja highway, which basically were the rooftops. Kids of 10 and above were nothing special to run over them. No one would complain about two academy students in their second to third year taking that path anyway. Anyway, when the guard saw them, he didn't hesitate to let the heiress and her best friend through. Naruto was such a common sight by now that the motto become, better have her come through the front rather than endure another prank. Literally, she taught the Hyuga the fear before the prankster skills of aboard Naruto. Nothing was more terrifying for a clan with X-ray vision than being unable to stop a 10-year-old kid from entering their compound. Some suspected she had some kind of invisibility power that even the Byakugan couldn't see through. Truth was, there were tons of secret passageways, and the Byakugan apparently didn't allow to look downward.
Or the Hyuga just didn't look that way like most people. Strangely, no one else was aware of this, it seemed. She did tell them about how there are secret passages under the whole village, but no one found them until now other than her, it seemed. But she also didn't want to give them away to them so easily and kept her mouth shut.
Naruto smiled as several of the clan members greeted her. She was, despite all, on good terms with most of the clan. Enough that her reputation with the clan at large was very friendly on average. Well, perhaps it was partially from respect to her infiltration skills, who knows? She did, after all, infiltrating the Anbu HQ, the Hyuga compound, and had never been caught was a skill they could respect. It also didn't hurt that she actually helped the sweet young heiress of the clan, Hyuga Hinata, to overcome her shyness slowly and improve due to that. It didn't take long for the two girls to arrive at the main residence, Hinata's home. The building was done in a traditional, Japanese style. It was gigantic, just as expected from the currently largest and wealthiest clan in Konoha. They also had a bad habit of floundering that fact a bit too much. At the door waited no one other than Hyuga Neji, Hinata's very mean, very pessimistic and older cousin from the branch family. Naruko at first hated the boy for his attitude, but after Hinata explained to her his reasons she had calmed down. She still pranked his ass every chance she got, and considering that he was quite the bully. Well, he was afraid out of his mind of her. Most talented in the clan, sure, but he still got a bit of a purple tint in his hair from last week. "Ohio Neji-kun, I see you got new clothes," smirked Naruko at the young man who swallowed at seeing the goddess of pranks before him. There were few females that could terrify the entire Anbu of Konoha, had the respect of the elders, were on Donzo's don't mess with list, and could make half the population of Konoha wary of the next stunt she would pull. She was the only one under 28, by the way. So yeah, that he was afraid of her had a good reason. Seeing as people still didn't stop acting stupid showed just how stupid most people were. "Yes, I assume you escorted Hinata-sama home?" asked Neji, wary of his cousin's best friend who, despite lacking in many aspects, was the hardest opponent you could face below Chunin level if she wasn't forbidden from using trickery, traps and similar things. Only half the village really was afraid of her because the rest were civilians. Yes, those idiots just didn't get the message that this girl was just too good for them to mess with. He shuddered at the idea of Naruko going berserk with pranks. She knew the village better than anyone else. She could kill anyone by planting bombs everywhere under the village.
And considering she never got caught until she was finished and wanted it probably to happen, he wasn't sure if Konoha was ready for something like a Naruko who hated everyone. He knew that many thought that Hinata was one of the few things in the village keeping her loyal, and so no one batted an eye on their friendship. It was also a fact that those who could try to stop their friendship knew she would probably go overboard on her pranks against them. And overboard meant killing them accidentally.
So he just let them into the house and left as quickly as possible. They both found Hiyashi sitting in the living room. Hinata's sister Hanabi not around, so she was probably training with someone. Good. Naruko didn't have anything against Hanabi on a personal level, but the girl was arrogant. She was too much indoctrinated into that talent is all and hard work won't make you better than a genius nonsense that the clan was so infamous for.
"Ohio Hiyashi Dono," greeted Naruko the clan head, who looked up from his paperwork when they entered the room. "Ohio Naruko-san, I see Hinata was with you," stated Hiyashi, keeping polite despite how Naruko was pretty close to being a family member from the amount of time she spent with them due to Hinata. Even though he showed a cold exterior, Hiyashi still cared for his daughter and thus for her one best friend. Naruko's constant encouraging had given Hinata much needed strength to work on her own failings, making her stronger. "Yup, we were training. Gigi gave us 2 tutors to help us train, Yugo-sensei and Hayate-sensei," explained Naruko happily, and with a gesture of his. She had learned a lot in her time with them, he had to admit, because she didn't do it right away. She sat down along with Hinata.
"I see, so that was why you two took so long?" asked Hiyashi, looking at the two of them, approving of the idea of Naruko, the one who could drag Hinata out of her shell, helping his daughter train properly. But there is another thing," answered Naruko, and Hiyashi raised an eyebrow at her statement. "Invite Hyuga Hiyashi," intoned Naruko loudly, and the man nearly jumped out of his skin at seeing the box with the invitation appear before him. "Naruko-san, what is that?" asked Hiyashi, not knowing what this was from looks alone. Naruko smiled and answered, "It's a ability I gained a week ago. It makes my life a sort of RPG so I can see my own stats, skills and improve them all," she explained to Hiyashi, who tapped yes on the small window and looked at the two girls. The gamer and sleeping beauty of the Hyuga hung above Naruko and Hinata respectively. Naruko was a bit stronger than his own daughter was, at level 10 while she was at level 7. Looking above himself, he found that he also had a title and name with level over his head. Prideful head of the Hyuga clan. Hyuga Hiyashi LVL 65. He nodded in approval of himself as he looked at the two girls. "I take it you already added your 2 tutors to this party?" asked Hiyashi, trying to discern more information about this. "Yup, I can share it with party members, but I need to refresh it every 24 hours so they retain the abilities. We can go into dungeons to fight, and after I beat a low-level boss in the first dungeon we went through, a new option was given to my ability," explained Naruko, and he raised his eyebrow at the child. "I can exchange very special points, Skill points they are called, for Kekkei Genkai if I am friendly with the clan or share a element that makes up the Kekkei Genkai. Explained Naruto to him, and that stopped him.
Alright. What does that have to do with me then? I would understand keeping this secret after all. Asked Hiyashi, confused that the girl was giving away such valuable information to him.
Naruto shifted a bit nervously before opening her own menu, navigating to the Kekkei Genkai selection section. Hiyashi didn't need to be told what it listed, seeing the different icons. On the top was a stylized Byakugan, then there was the magnet kanji, followed by ice kanji, and finally what looked like a human with chains coming out of him, or rather her, from the shape of the figure. I wanted to ask if I could have your permission to use one of the points to get a Byakugan, then I could help Hinata better with her own. She asked, more timidly than was usual for the normally confident redhead. Hiyashi leaned back in his seat, contemplating his answer. On one hand, Naruto was probably the single most trustworthy person he knew. She was fiercely loyal to Konoha, she loved Hinata like a sister, and despite the pranks had also a love for Hinata's family. As the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, though it would be impossible to put the caged bird seal on her, the Kyuubi rejected any form of Juin instantly and his chakra flowed through her. All things considered, he could see pros and cons to this possibility. For one thing, Naruto was not someone to betray your trust in her. She was an idealistic girl who retained enough realism to know right from wrong and knew the world wasn't perfect. Alone the fact that she hadn't yet went and run away with this ability was a clear sign. She was also stable, acting childish, pranking people, a sunshine in a dark world of ninja and murder. Another reason he liked her. Naruto was always refreshing to have around, balsam to his strained nerves, in other words. Then an idea come to his mind. I can agree to that, but there is a condition that must be met. Stated Hiyashi, and Naruto cocked her head to the side cutely, confused by this. As you know, the Byakugan is a highly valued dojutsu. Should someone gain one of your eyes, they could steal it from the village, as has happened before. Therefore you would have to sign a blood-binding contract. He explained, and Naruto blinked, confused, which was only natural in his eyes. It was after all rather obscure. The last time it was used was by the Uchiha when Hitaki Kakashi obtained his Sharingan. A blood-binding contract is a special sort of seal-based contract. With it you will agree that, if your eyes are transplanted to anyone that isn't part of Konoha, that person will die. It will also cause your own death as a side effect should you betray the village of your own free will. This is to prevent enemies from getting their hands on your eyes. Explained Hiyashi, and Naruto frowned, her mind going over the possibilities of this option. Finally she nodded. All right, I think it is just fair, right? But if that is an option, why are there those caged bird seal things? Asked Naruto, and Hiyashi smiled at her answer. It was clear that she didn't like it as usual. The Hyuga elders are adamant that the seal is the only real way to preserve the clan. The contract was only recently developed, a bit over 16 years ago, and that is, to them, too soon to give up their old traditions. Explained the clan head to the girl, who frowned. I knew I should have pranked them harder, but now I at least have a target for Saturday. She muttered, and Hiyashi sweated a bit. Naruto had lay low in recent times. Hiyashi felt a pang of sympathy with the elders, but then the rest of his mind kicked sympathy in the crown jewels and reminded him that Hizashi died because of their stupid traditions and Neji had the seal because of them too. Well, I have a copy of the contract luckily with me, I just need to do the modifications. He explained before picking a page of paper from inside his desk and then begun to make the modifications, using the special ink that was mixed with his blood to make the seals activate. Alright, one last thing before we proceed. Be aware that when you graduate, since I know you two would be teamed up, I want you, Naruto, to act as Hinata's bodyguard. Protect her. That is the condition for me to agree to. Explained Hiyashi, and Naruto nodded before following his instructions to use her own blood to write her signature at the bottom, right under Hiyashi's own. Seconds later all the text glowed and Naruto winced. She felt something on her left upper arm, and when looking, she found the hyuga symbol as a light, pink scar there. Alright, that is the sign that the contract was made official. Now you can add the Byakugan if you wish. Explained Hiyashi, and Naruto nodded. Her observe skill showed that it wasn't a slave mark and had no purpose beyond anchoring the contract to her body. With a single tap, the level of mastery went from 0/10 to 1/10, and instantly Naruto flinched, feeling her eyes burn suddenly. Hiyashi observed how Naruto began to rub her eyes frantically, as if in pain. He quickly activated his Byakugan and watched in fascination how her chakra network began to rearrange itself around her eyes until it had the typical shape of someone with a dojutsu.
When she opened her eyes again, Hiyashi was greeted with slightly altered eyes. Her iris became much lighter in shade, still blue but now much lighter than previously. Her pupils were still there but now the blue encroached into it, like a mixture of the typical hyuga eyes and her old.
Then, suddenly, a new window popped up before her.
Congratulations. You have completed the hidden quest, Farsight, for each. Reward. 500 XP, plus 2 levels of Byakugan, plus 1, Beginner's Juken, Skillbook. They all looked at this message surprised. Naruto didn't even know about that quest. Checking her stats, Naruto found that the Byakugan was at level 12 now, considering the 10-step improvement. Most likely all Kekkei Genkai would grow that way when she placed a point on it.
Looking at the book, she found that it was simply a book that allowed her to learn instantly basic skills associated with a certain subject like, in this case, the Juken style. Quickly activating the book, a new message appeared. Congratulations. You have unlocked Beginner Juken User as a skill. Plus 1% damage while using Juken-based taijutsu, plus 1% chance of parrying, plus 1% chance of hitting a tenketsu point of the opponent, plus 1% chance of disabling.
Congratulations. Beginner Juken User has leveled up to 10, plus 10% damage while using Juken-based taijutsu, plus 10% chance of parrying, plus 10% chance of hitting a tenketsu point of the opponent, plus 10% chance of disabling.
Naruto blinked, her mind gaining the knowledge of the very basics quickly while her muscles ached from sudden gain of basic muscle memory as if she had just practiced for over 4 days without pause. Naruto groaned, aching all over her body while her muscles spasmed just slightly. Even stamina monster like her couldn't take that.
Hiyashi laughed slightly at that display, mentally noting to talk to the Hokage later on. This could be the opportunity to break any further influence of the civilians over Naruto and do what he had actually wanted to do for years now, and as he had promised her parents. Take her in, at least as a ward of the Hyuga clan. Now that she actually had the Byakugan, he could justify it better by claiming it had been dormant until now and thus she had to be turned over to his care.
He patted himself on the shoulder for his own genius. He surprised himself at times. Yugao and Hayate entered a short time after parting with their young charges the Hokage Tower to report to the Sandaime about their first dungeon experience. Entering the room, they found the old man doing what he appeared to do most of the time, paperwork. It was quite sad that the professor in such a sorry state, but neither would trade with him. Then again, Naruto wanted his job for some reason. Why? They didn't know, but Yugao suspected that she wouldn't care anyway because it still was the Hokage position. And probably would find a solution to paperwork too. Hokage-sama, we come to report on our latest assignment, stated Yugao respectfully, and could see the relief of her superior at the distraction. Activating a privacy seal, the aged leader of Konoha sat back and beckoned them forward. Well, how went the first dungeon? Asked Sarutobi with a smile on his face as he looked at the pair of ninja that were standing before him in interest.
Yugao stepped forward. As usual, she was the one between them who talked more. Yes, Hokage-sama. The dungeon was rather easy, to be honest. We believe it was meant from the get-go to be used by low-level people, which also explains the boost of 3 levels when they formed a party. Explained Yugao to the old man, who frowned, nonetheless interested in hearing.
Yugao then began to explain what happened in the dungeon, how the girls rather easily dispatched of the various slimes encountered before Naruto, quite literally, single-handedly took on the boss of the first part of the overall dungeon. Sarutobi was surprised that, in the end, Naruto actually managed to do something like that, but it also made him proud of her for that accomplishment. Finally, the victory unlocked a new function, though it appears it didn't include either Hayate-kun nor me. Explained Yugao, finally coming to the most important part of this whole explanation. Naruto and Hinata can exchange certain points for Kekkei Genkai. Naruto-chan wants to ask Hiyashi-sama to let her use this to obtain the Byakugan. Explained Yugao, and Sarutobi paled slyly. Naruto, obtaining the Byakugan.
Yugao-san, please send an alarm to the Anbu, case Alpha Omega Foxtrot could happen. Stated Sarutobi, and Yugao blinked before her brain processed what he meant. The near-weekly training exercises of Naruto pranking the Anbu HQ would, if this case really happened, become actually dangerous to everyone involved. Fuck. She swallowed and nodded to the aged village leader. I will do so. But I am not sure whether Naruko-chan will. She stopped as a message appeared before her and Hayate. Event alert. Party leader Uzumaki Naruko earned the Byakugan, Kekkei Genkei. She sighed. Never mind, she convinced Hiyashi-sama to allow her to get it. Stated Yugo with a sigh. Well, that meant only that the Anbu would now be unable to hide from her. Hokage-sama, another thing. Naruko-chan has learned about the Kyuubi. She read an entry in the bestiary about Jinchuriki which listed her. Explained Yugo sadly, knowing that this had thrown the girl for a loop at the time. Sarutobi Whinced, so much for the plan to wait until she was a chunin. Now she wasn't even a genin and a bestiary listed her as a Jinchuriki. What did that bestiary say? Asked Sarutobi, hoping it didn't do anything stupid like saying they were the Biju. It explained Jinchuriki rather well all things considered, but did list her as the only one she knew personally it seems. She was also the poster child in the list. She explained with a sigh, not liking how it went south that way. Luckily Hinata-chan appears to have been taught enough about sealing to know the difference. I think that helped Naruko. Explained Yugo and Sarutobi nodded, sighing slightly.
Then a sly smirk appeared on Yugo's face. I kind of mentioned how the Sandaime treats his own son though. I suggest we postpone any visits from him or keep her in a dungeon during those times or else he will find himself pranked so badly that not even his golden sand can save him anymore. Informed Yugo her superior who shuddered at the idea of Naruko taking revenge in the stead of her fellow Jinchuriki. Good idea, I will inform you two when that happens to arrange such actions. He explained to the two and they just nodded. He sunk back in his seat and then asked, what are your plans tomorrow? Another dungeon exploration, asked Sarutobi the two. He had arranged with Iruka to exclude Hinata and Naruko for the next week from class so they could train with Yugo and Hayate. It was also a good exercise for later after all.
We thought about doing some real tutoring. Naruko-chan needs a bit of help with her different skills and I read that having a tutor will actually give benefits. Explained Yugo to the old man and Sarutobi nodded in understanding. That could be actually helpful.
How many tutors can they have at the same time? And what exactly are the benefits? Asked Hiruzen interested, looking at the two that had been tasked with helping the girls during training. Up to 5 different teachers. Answered Hayate, followed by a fit of coughing. Ever since the last war his lungs had been like that. A poison had been used by Hanzo the salamander and it had burned at his lungs like acid. He was saved but retained an incurable illness from it. It doesn't stack up though if they are similar like boosting express. Explained Hayate, having read up on this himself. Yugo nodded in agreement and explained. I myself give a boost in form of 5 times more experience points, but I must first officially take them on as apprentices. I also give apparently a boost to people I teach the Hokage Ryu style to through the skill associated with it. Same with Hayate but in that case it apparently stacks up. She explained. Still confused about all this but apparently skill-related bonuses were different. I see, anything else to report? Asked Sarutobi, looking at the two before him but at their shake of their heads he dismissed them. Once they were out he sighed tiredly and leaned back. I am getting too old for this kind of stress. Where are Tsunade and Jiraiya when I need them? He muttered but then sighed again, his head hitting the table before him.
Oh yeah. One is going around for information. No matter what that information is, and the other is still reeling from the loss of her brother and fiancé. I really should take Naruko up on her offer, at least for a week. Muttered Sarutobi to himself, feeling all of his years bearing down on his old shoulders. XXXXXOOOXXXXX Naruko sighed contently as she woke up. A message informing her as usual about the refilling of her HP and CP as well as the healing of extreme muscle overexertion. Strangely it said she had been healed by 50% because she had slept on a futon. Why did she sleep on a futon? Then it hit her, the last day rushing back into her awareness. After getting the Byakugan and the scroll, Hiyashi had offered for her to stay for the night as it was getting late at that point. She didn't last a second after hitting the pillow, falling asleep instantly. She sat up, yawning as she stretched. She had been given a futon in Hinata's room because Naruko had been shown to be unable to sleep in foreign environments unless someone close to her was in the same room. Looking to the clock she found it was only 7:30 a.m.,
give or take a few minutes. Hinata was already out of bed and so Naruto decided to use her new eyes to check where she was. The sensation of the Byakugan was really alien to Naruto. It disorientated her for a moment when she perceived everything around her at the same time. It took her a minute or two to get a hang on the whole thing and focus it around to look for Hinata. With that, finding her was rather easy. Naruto recognized her due to the height and from the smaller person striking at her and being struck. She was sparring with Hanabi, and if Naruto was to take a guess, Hinata was actually beating Hanabi back. Hinata had a very high dexterity stat which allowed her to use greater speed and, well, dexterity, while Naruto saw her use her point to enhance her Byakugan more.
Naruto hadn't done that. She wanted another Kekkei Genkai after all. It would add work for her, but another power like that was great. She stood up, and was about to grab her clothes that she had discarded for the spare pajama that Hinata kept in her room for such occasions. Not the first time really, she found a pair of spare clothes that she definitely knew belonged to Hinata. Seriously. She knew Hinata's wardrobe better than her dad. Really.
She once mentioned while visiting a nice-looking, orange dress, and Hiyashi had been bewildered his daughter had something orange. She gave it to her a few years ago for Christmas, if you wonder. So be fair to him. She put those clothes on, a bit large on her rather small body, but, well, who cares? And went to the backyard. As her newly upgraded eyes had shown, Hinata was sparring with Hanabi, and a short check on Hinata revealed that her current Byakugan level was 60, probably rounded upward or something. Hanabi had an impressive 53, but that still wasn't up to par with Hinata's own level at the Kekkei Genkai. Thank Gaia for the gamer ability. Right.
I see you noticed their training, stated Hiyashi, startling Naruto into jumping up and around, which was quite funny to him. I talked last night with Yugo-san and Hayate-kun. They agreed that you can train during the morning here since they already were informed by your ability about the Byakugan. He explained to the girl, who nodded but looked still a bit surprised.
Anyway, I will be going this afternoon to talk with Hokage-sama about your living arrangements, because you will be charged with protecting our heir and also helping her train. Not to mention that your Byakugan puts you in danger too. It will be necessary for you to move into the hyuga compound. It will also allow you to start training earlier. He explained to the girl, who looked a bit dumbfounded. To be honest, that face reminded him of a puppy, and he could imagine two gears on her head with one raised, the other to the side in confusion. Just a tilt of the heaad, yeah. There it was. Perfect confused puppy look right there. That also means you will stay with our family. He added, and a happy realization eclipsed her confusion. He should get sunglasses, that brightness could blind him. With Hanabi and Hinata occupied, Hiyashi took Naruto to the side. He knew she would take a while to really get a hang on her Byakugan due to the side effect of her Byakugan having been added artificially. Just as he was about to get her to get into a proper stance, a pop-up appeared before her.
Do you want to add Hyuga Hiyashi as a tutor? Tutor perk. X2 Byakugan and Juken skill leveling. Yes. No. Naruto looked to him but then clicked on yes. And to Hiyashi appeared a small list in his field of vision. Students. Uzumaki Naruto, Hyuga Hinata, Hyuga Hanabi. 3/10. Hiyashi could only guess that meant he could take 10 students overall.
Well, Naruto-chan, that appears to settle your little problem with the growth. Stated Hiyashi. It made things easier in his mind. After all, Naruto had a penalty on those skills and the Kekkei Genkai against leveling them because of not being actual part of the clan. The next hour was spent with Naruto trying in vain to use both the Byakugan, the style, and her personal approach to taijutsu to strike him. Evading. No problem. The girl was harder to hit than a fly with jetpack. Hitting. His defense was too dense. According to her skill, he had his Byakugan maxed out, a contrast to her level 12 Byakugan. Said eyes were, a side of color, the same as any born Hyuga, the same veins, the same seeming strain on her eyes. Even the same abilities, just that she was at times still adjusting to the Kekkei Genkai's strange visuals. It was funny in a way to him seeing a 10-year-old struggle with offensive but being the most evasive fighter he saw so far. And the best, whenever he did hit her, she just jabbed at that point quickly to reopen it. She was so resistant to pain that she could just do it herself, and that was impressive if also sad. Twice during the next 4 hours a notice would appear about her leveling up her Byakugan, while the same held true to the Juken. Hiyashi was quite pleased with the progress. Naruto had the stamina to go on for another few hours, he guessed. She didn't even look winded yet. Alright, that is enough for now, Naruto-chan, he stated, letting his own stance go while Naruto, bruised all over as she was, relaxed too. You did quite well for a beginner, Naruto-chan, especially in the defense. He commented on her ability to adapt to the fighting style. Normally it would be frowned upon to change the style, but considering Naruto never trained in it before, or even was an actual hyuga, so it could be forgiven that combined her dodge tank approach with the Juken. And it was frustrating to fight against, to be honest. But even then this was quite a good method of fighting since it provided her with defense that she would lack otherwise.
Naruto beamed at him for that and seemed more than eager to continue training in one way or another. Thanks, Hiyashi-sama, replied the girl, who was quite eager. Hiyashi knew that she would go and probably do something that didn't involve sitting around in a classroom. Luckily she didn't need to go there for a while, to be honest. Really good that they had allowed Naruto and Hinata to stay out of school for this training. XXXXXOOOXXXXX 2 days after Naruto moved into the Hyuga compound, the results of the training were astounding. For one, due to Yugo and Hayate becoming their tutors, their express rose 5 times as fast. Furthermore, the effect of the area actually stacked up with Yugo and Hayate's, so they actually got twice as much than just with them.
Seeing as it could be useful to not rely just on taijutsu, Hinata had picked up the sword which Hayate taught her. She learned much faster than she had any right to be honest, and roped Naruto also into the training, but she had a different favorite weapon, the bow. The bow was the staff, a basic, simple weapon on first glance, but it had the reach that a katana lacked. In the hands of a versatile and quite imaginative girl, it became the Suizer army knife of ninja. Club, staff, shield, wannabe spear. It became all that and more by just a change of the grip. It even could become a wooden replacement for a sword when she grabbed it as if she held a sword in her hands. It was this day that Naruto found herself with free time, for the first time in a long while. And what did she do? She went to the Hokage. She was peeved for not being told, and that showed nicely and made people avoid her more than usual because, you know what? Angry Naruto is angry, with all the additions. And everyone knew that a emotional Naruto was worse than Anko if you drop her dango. The only thing lacking would be a fire aura around her while she stomps so hard the ground shakes. Sadly for the general shinobi populace, Naruto has a short attention span, and the moment you hang a sign on a door stating "Don't enter," then you can be guaranteed that she would go in just to see why she wasn't allowed to. An hour or so late, Sarutobi Hiruzen walked along that same corridor when he saw Naruto leaving the room. "Naruto, what in the name of the sage are you doing there?" asked the old man, shocked, panic growing in him as Naruto's slightly altered eyes turned to him. "Gigi," shouted she suddenly, and he remembered that she had been seen angrily walking here. "Oh shit, why didn't you tell me about the furball in my guts? Didn't I have a right to know it? And what about the Uzumaki clan? One of my perks calls me the heir of that clan, so why didn't you tell me?" asked Naruto angrily, and Sarutobi found himself facing a little dragon. Fangs and claws included. XXXXXOOOXXXXX. 3 hours after this, Sarutobi sighed as he finished telling Naruto the general reason why he didn't tell her, mainly because it was dangerous if people knew of her heritage.
He also questioned her what she did, even though he saw it already. She had absorbed every scroll in the room where he stored the forbidden scroll, but the only jutsu she had managed to sort out so far was Kagebunshin no Jutsu. The rest were just hanging around in her mind. What come after he finished his long explanation was surprising to Naruto, who had added him to her party to show him the confusing list of jutsu she had. Congratulations. Hidden quest completed. Letting the fox out. Goal. Interrogate Sarutobi for his reasons, complete.
Rewards. 800 express, +1 skill point, +10 stat points. Sarutobi Hiruzen can be taken as a tutor.
Naruto starred at this. She didn't even know that there was such a quest to begin with. Then again, this was a hidden quest, so it was probably just normal for it to be the case.
"Well, seems like the game wants to tell us something here," remarked Sarutobi, looking at the message from his position while Naruto looked a bit confused. "Let's see what my own boons as a teacher would be," he commented and opened his own menu, having played with it while he had it the day that Yugao took on Naruto and Hinata. Sarutobi Hiruzen. Rank. Hokage +10 loot when killing monsters, no level penalty, Bojutsu, skill express bonus, x4. He blinked at this information. It wasn't all there was, but it was the most important he needed. His level was also 1942, by the way, but there were penalties, like advanced age, which gave him huge decreases in his stats. Well, he had to exercise more in the future, it seemed.
Whoa. Does that mean you could teach me Bojutsu? Asked Naruto excitedly, and he was ripped out of his thoughts by her. Her and her doom gaze puppy eyes. Yes, he called it that. She was too cute and effective. He could bet even Orochimaru wouldn't be able to resist. Hell, even Danzo he wouldn't be able to do that easily.
Yes, I am considered a master of the art. Does that mean you want to learn it? Asked Sarutobi, interested what the little girl wanted to do, but she already opened her menu and he saw her work her inventory. It was so useful, this inventory. Until a certain threshold was reached, you could carry anything around. Threshold meaning a number of items equal to your own STR stat. Stackable weapons, throwing weapons, always were put as one item in stacks of up to 999 items. Naruto herself could carry 85 items. She finally materialized what she wanted and caught a bow staff, roughly 3 feet long but generally just a simple piece of wood straightened into this shape. It was a clear training bow, but from what he could tell it gave a higher boost than the ordinary ones he knew.
Where did you get that? He asked curiously as the child held it with a wide grin on her face.
The first boss had this neat key for a chest with the true treasures. She explained to the old man, who smiled fondly at her enthusiasm, especially as he now found himself a willing student for Bojutsu, which he had lacked among his last 3 students who didn't pick up his art.
Well, Naruto, I think if you really want to learn the art of Bojutsu, then I will gladly teach you, he told her, to which she cheered. He didn't know of the monster he had unleashed upon the world. XXXXXOOOXXXXX. A day after the confrontation found Naruto, Hinata, Hayate and Yugo on training ground 14 once again. It was time to challenge the next stage of the dungeon, and they didn't waste time standing around. The moment they arrived at the gates, they were again in fields of Slimester. And again a killing counter was set, but they ignored this. Moving into the city, which was decrepit to the naked eye, they got a new message. King Slimester's country, bonus, plus 20% experience points. Current level. Slimester's capital Slimania, time limit until boss appearance, 30:00 minutes. Goal. Destroy as many enemies before the boss appears as possible to reduce the amount of enemies swarming you during the fight. They looked at that message and then to one another. Okay, that is mean, stated Naruto, not sure what to think about that new version of the boss conditions. If I had to guess, I would say that we should hurry, stated Yugo, and the others nodded.
Alright, all-out assault. Kajbunshin no Jutsu, shouted Naruto, and 5 clones appeared around her, dividing her points by 6 that way. With a base stat of 4,135 that gave each clone and Naruto herself 689 CP to use. Okay girls, swarm out and take out as many enemies as possible, shouted Naruto, in a collective high. Followed the command, to which the clones jumped off in all directions.
Alright, while Naruto's clones take out monsters, you go and put up traps and the like, ordered Yugo, with Naruto nodding. After the recent prank she played on the village elders, which involved unheard amounts of backing powder and paint, she discovered that this translated into a skill, Grandmaster Trap Builder. It basically made her able to make anyone fall into a trap, which included pranks. But unless she wanted to make it lethal, it wasn't. She could kill you with pepper spray, just so you know. It was absolute mastery in the origin of her Prank Queen perk. In other words, she is awesome. Also, the whole downloaded the whole archive around the sealed scroll incident blew over after discovering the scroll creation skill, which allowed her to create instruction manuals for all jutsu and skills she had. Using that, she had given Hinata a copy of the Kaiten Kakyo no Jutsu scroll, so she could use it now too. The same went with the medium trap builder skill, which was the limit to how advanced a manual she could make. Because of that, Hinata helped her when they begun to use wreckage of the surrounding area to make the trap, a trap for the boss and its helpers if any. The clones, on the other hand, encountered new types of enemies. Namely, small purple slime, small orange slime, and small yellow slime, as well as their medium-sized counterparts. Aside of those there were also necroslime guard mobs, which were the animated corpses of armored humans wielding a variety of weapons indicating outlandish weaponry. They, like the boss of the prior dungeon, were controlled by black slimes, necroslime, to be exact. Less frequently than most they dropped their weapons, such as spears, swords, some shields, helmets and the like. Between Juken attacks and Kaiten, Kakyo no Jutsu, the enemies were easy pickings. Even so, it took quite some time to get those annoying slimes down. While this was happening, Yugo and Hayate were investigating the city's buildings. In them they found a rather macabre piece of information. This country once was inhabited by humans. Many houses still held pictures of families, clothes, even skeletons huddled together as if in their last minutes of starving. Many houses had been broken in by slimes at some point, but most showed signs of people having stayed there until running out of food. In many buildings they found necroslime, controlled zombies, including women and children in simple peasant clothes. In armories they found larger numbers of necroslime knight mobs and very good loot, but it showed a grim picture. From what they found, it indicated that this once was supposed to be a prospering country until those slimes showed up. The natives, who only had steel weapons and no jutsu or chakra, were unable to fight back against the malleable slimes. Escape routes they found indicated that people may have escaped, but for many, especially the guards and soldiers, it had been the last days of their lives. It wasn't until the timer showed 101 minutes left that they returned to the gathering point. As usual, no one could make out the large number of traps Naruto had made. Neither of the two adults had an idea where the traps were due to the absolute mastery of the skill. Naruko-chan, report. Ordered Yugo. Finally, they had about a minute left for it. Hi, Yugo-sensei. Answered the girl before explaining. The traps are all set. We were attacked a few times, but Hinata-chan was able to defeat all of the necroslime guard enemies as well as the different slimes. My clones also report no further slimes in the city from what we know. The enemies all had special abilities once again. Explained Naruto to Yugo, who nodded, knowing that much. Hinata was who picked up after Naruto. The purple slime mobs are venomous. The orange slime mobs can harden like rock apparently but become immobile and are also the slowest so far, while the yellow slime mobs appear to be capable of raiden ninjutsu. Explained Hinata, and the two adults nodded. This did coincide with their own observations so far. Alright, everyone take a soldier pill. We need to refill our chakra. Ordered Yugo, and the group did just that. Normally those pills would be unavailable to Hinata and Naruto, but due to the situation Yugo and Hayate went to the trouble of purchasing low-level ones for the girls to replenish their chakra with them. Just as their chakra had regenerated, a loud buzzing noise drew their attention up the street, to the large doors of the castle in the middle of the city. Those opened up and out stepped, or slurched, a pair of animated corpses. Over their heads hung the name, Necroslime Royal Guard, Level 6 monsters. Following them was something grotesque. Again it was a corpse, but this one was nothing but a skeleton with black ooze filling in the clothes. On top of its head was a crone and it held a scepter-like mace in its hand. Boss appearance. Necroslime Queen. Elazaroth 3:7. There was the queen, it appeared, and both Yugo and Hayate realized that this probably meant that the royal family had been probably killed and now housed the leaders of the slimes. Luckily it was still rather weak, lower than any of the team, so it was no trouble. Okay, take out the ads, we will keep the boss busy. Ordered Yugo, deciding it was best to get the additional enemies out of the way before the boss was taken on. The boss itself was apparently a tank, having 20,000 HP. Why she was that way showed soon. The moment a guard was killed by Naruto, she shrieked loudly and another two appeared. Great cough, she spawns new ones if the old ones die. Muttered Hayate as he blocked the sloppy swing of the mace wielded by the boss. Yugo kept on her toes, frowning as she dodged the clumsy swings of the skeleton animated only by the slime. The thing didn't even have that good of a control over the body. New plan, you two get the boss, Hayate and I will go take on the ads. Naruto, plan Iron Chain Bind as a go. Shouted Yugo before disengaging and switching places with Naruto, who had taken on the pair, while Hayate did the same with Hinata. Naruto, with a flick of her wrist, shot an orange-colored chain from her sleeve of the newest armor she had made. The new armor, thick leather jacket, was a part of a new set of clothes that raised her depth from 20 to 39. Anyway, the chain itself was made of her chakra, one of the two Kekkei Genkai she used her points for. The first was Jishin, the magnet release, and the other was chakra chains. According to the description, it was a rare ability manifesting mostly in female members of the Uzumaki clan. They fed both on the chakra of the user as well as gaining strength based on the chakra levels of the opponent. You could bind a biju easily with them actually. Because the chains were still part of her own chakra, she could both easily manipulate them and didn't spend too much chakra on them. She planned to threaten the Kyuubi with it should she ever need to contact him for a bit of assistance, and he was stubborn. Anyway, the chain was tipped with a short blade which struck a patch of earth, and as if on command this sent a huge trunk of a tree suddenly flew out of nowhere, bowling over the boss and taking out a solid 2,000 points out of her. Hinata followed this up by using Juken on the boss, who was mostly slime and didn't wear armor. It was a bit annoying, but apparently, whatever materials the inhabitants used for their armor were chakra resistant to an extent. That wasn't true for the ordinary clothes, even if the queen wore some nice regalia. When the queen prepared launch another strike at Hinata, Naruto quickly used her chains to stop her. Even without chakra from the one held, the chains were more than enough to stop a lowly slime-controlled skeleton. Another thing she learned with her chains was altering them. Within seconds the chains grew blades on the sides that cut deep into bone and slime alike, making the queen wail in pain. Hinata. Out of the way, I activate rolling stones, called Naruto over to her best friend, who quickly put distance between them while Naruto chucked a kunai at a nearby house, cutting a hidden string, and from nowhere suddenly a large boulder crushed the queen from above. Naruto didn't really care where the boulder was stored, she also didn't care how it stayed up there or become invisible. It works, so why not? With this all but instant kill attack that pulverized the bones of the queen and squashed the entire thing to pudding. That did it. Total annihilation emptied the remaining 7,593 points of the boss in one go. Naruto sighed in relief at seeing the message appear. Congratulations. You defeated Necro Slime Queen. Elazaroth 3. Bonus goal. Last attack bonus. Reward. 3000 Express. Access to Slimester's Treasury. Obtained. Access to Slimester's Castle. Hugenwald. Unlocked. Bonus goal. Familiar system unlocked. They all looked at each other and then went to the spot where the queen had been squashed. The guards had been evaporated with her passing. Storing the boulder in her inventory, they found a bundle of keys, and when Naruto picked it up, 4 keys dangling from it, a door appeared to the immediate right of the large entrance of the castle. They looked at each other before entering the room beyond the door. Inside there were several coats of arms, full armors, and dozens of chests. They each had a different design on them, but only 4 fit with the keys they had. Do you think that we should have killed more? Asked Naruto, seeing as the number of opponents killed in the end seemed the same as the number of keys. Probably. Let's just take what we get, stated Yugo with a sigh as the 4 went to each of the chests with one of the keys. Naruto took the key, which corresponded to a chest with a fox on it. She had taken it because, irony wasn't unknown to her, and she was the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Opening the chest, she found a golden ring with a red gem in it, 2,000 ryo, and a pair of bracelets made of steel. Using Observe on the bracelets showed that they were glove-type items, armor technically but with low damage output, which each could fire a burst of fire or ice. The ring, though, was much more interesting. Ring of Power. Rarity. Super rare type. Accessoire description. A ring that was passed down in the royal family as a treasure. No one could use this artifact because it only activates by using chakra. If chakra is put into the ring, it will give a 50% boost to physical strength and endurance for 40 minutes, but needs 2 hours after running out before being activated again. Naruto grinned. She was the tank between Hinata and herself, and with that ring she would be even more tanky. Wait, was that a word? Oh, whatever, she was the gamer, she had the right to invent her own words if she wanted to. Hinata, on the other hand, had also opened her chest. It also contained 2,000 ryo, but instead of bracers like Naruto got them, her own chest contained a pair of cutlass-like weapons. They were black and white respectively, identical in shape, but while one looked as if had scales, the other had waves on it. Next to it lay, like with Naruto, a ring. This one held a blue gem in it. Considering her own chest had a wave design on it, she wouldn't complain. Kansho and Byakuya. Rarity. Unique type. Noble Phantasm. Damage. 20 to 40 description. The married twin swords, as they are often called, are powerful weapons of unknown origin. They were gifts given to the kingdom by a strange man in red and black and said to return to each other no matter distance. Any regular weapon that so far tried to compete with them broke on contact, said to be because of their status as noble phantasm, though the meaning is unknown. Hinata blinked at this description. That was a pair of very powerful weapons. And if they were twin swords, then they would have to be wielded together, so they were unlike what she had trained. Even so, she had long ago learned that it was better to have some killer weapons than just concentrate on having those who fit you. So, while she preferred to use a single, one-handed sword normally, she would keep them if she needed the extra boost. Looking to the ring, she also analyzed it. Ring of Fire, 1. Rarity. Super rare type. Leveling item details. A strange magical ring that can cast weak fire spells. This strange artifact in fact can create pseudo-kaiten ninjutsu, but only if fueled with chakra will it perform powerful attacks. Currently it is limited to kaiten. Kakyo no jutsu, but if used repeatedly will unlock more jutsu. Hinata blinked at this piece of information. A item with a level. Well, not one to complain. Hinata equipped the ring to herself. It would certainly help to have kaiten ninjutsu on her side with this item. Yugo herself had chosen the key with a sun emblazoned on it, which opened a similar chest. The chest contained, once again, 2,000 ryo as well as a pair of shoes and a pair of earrings. Phantom Knight's Swift Boots. Rarity, super rare. Type. Footwear details. A pair of shoes said to contain Ancient Knight's soul. It raises dex while using a sword by 20% and allows to summon Phantom Knights of Swift Boots to assist you in battle. While Phantom Knights of Swift Boots as summoned, the bonus from Phantom Knight's Swift Boots as negated. Read the information on the shoes, and Yugo found herself impressed. This item appeared to be rather useful, especially to her as a swordswoman. The earrings were next on her list to check out. Phantom Knight's Mystic Ears. Rarity, super rare. Type. Accessoire details. Mystic pieces of jewelry that are said to contain the spirit of Ancient Knight's soul. It raises def by 20% while using a sword and allows to summon Phantom Knights of Mystic Ears to assist in battle. While Phantom Knights of Mystic Ears as summoned, the bonus from Phantom Knight's Mystic Ears as negated. She frowned. That was pretty much a series, it seemed. But why phantom items in a sun-themed chest? She would never understand this logic. Hayate on the other hand got a moon-decorated chest for himself and found also the 2,000 ryo in it. What else he found was a katana, Swift Claw. Was its name, which had stats that were astronomical compared to his own sword. There was also an item called Emblem of Knights, which gave a 1% boost to all stats but was stackable, so it was probably an item that could be found more often. With that done, the group left the dungeon since the gold and other valuables weren't movable apparently. Like in most games probably. XXXXXOOOXXXXX. Finally the week off from the academy ended and Naruto and Hinata found themselves again on the way to the academy. By this point Naruto had started working on more simple clothes and her leather craftsman skill had advanced to advanced leather craftsman, which made even better armor than before, and now she could even make things that didn't look necessarily like super armor but were even better. Well, the panties weren't necessarily her best idea. On another note, she had finally started on working on puppet cases, which she had until now put on hold. Funnily enough, the first day they went to the academy again they would have a taijutsu test that was mixed in terms of gender. Well, it wouldn't be so lame.
It took about 30 minutes for Naruto to be called up. Her opponent was the class prodigy, Uchiha Sasuke. He was the currently only person in the Uchiha clan that she could build a friendly reputation with for the Sharingan. He was pretty arrogant though. She also didn't know what other girls liked about him so much. The rules of the engagement. Neither ninjutsu or genjutsu were allowed. Bukijutsu of any sort was allowed though.
Alert. Quest boss appeared. Uchiha Sasuke. Quest goal. Defeat Uchiha Sasuke. Losing condition. Lose to Uchiha Sasuke. Notice. You cannot use genjutsu or ninjutsu. You cannot die. You must go through this quest. She dismissed the notice with a thought before taking one of the scrolls she was given by Yugo and unsealed her bow. Bojutsu. Do you even know how to hold that? Sneered Sasuke as Naruto moved into the base stance of her style with the staff diagonal to the ground with the end facing backward lifted up. Don't you worry, Uchiha. I have trained a lot since the last time you saw me. Retorted Naruto confidently, to which the arrogant brat frowned before taking out a pair of kunai in a reverse grip. Well, he didn't have any other training with any kind of weapon so far. Hajime. Shouted Iruka, getting out of the way and not a second too late. Sasuke was already halfway to Naruto's side of the ring when Naruto appeared below him. Chakra trailed after her feet as she had used it in a reverse version of the tree climbing exercise to blast herself forward. This was a mutation that was unlocked at level 80 of any skill. In this case she had taken the chakra burst instead of steadfast like a rock. She liked speed and it also allowed her to change direction mid-air actually. She hit him hard in the stomach, making him stumble and stagger back. Sasuke staggered back while she flipped her staff over to return into the ready stance while Sasuke caught his breath. She didn't want to overdo it after all, so she didn't press it immediately. Observe. She whispered while Sasuke caught his breath to see his level. Uchiha Sasuke. Job. Ninja level. 13, next level. 6336 40ths. 000. Rank. Academy Student Specialization. N. AHP. 694 900ths. CP. 1500 STR. 120 seconds VIT. 45 DEX. 156 INT. 126. WIS. 65 130ths LUK. 12 DEF. 8 titles. N. A perks. Uchiha Air. Plus 20% reputation with Konohagakure. Plus 20% express on Sharingan. Minus 40%. Rationalism.
Curse of Hatred. Express X4. Weak will plus 50% chance to be persuaded with power. Inferiority complex plus 50% rage towards someone superior to you. Enables mad enhancement. Superiority complex plus 50% chance of being ambushed or surprised during battle. Plus 50% chance of falling for a trap. Lower logic minus 50% WIS.
Status effects. Would be Avenger. You are filled with hatred and the wish for revenge. This obsession negatively impacts your health. Minus 50% VIT growth per level, minus 40% def. Description. Uchiha Sasuke, the last Uchiha loyal to Konoha, at least as long as that holds. He is arrogant, self-righteous and you find him a huge pain in the ass. He is also your current opponent and an event boss. As such his strength was upped but his other stats not due to either being too high or a penalty hanging to them.
Stat points. 0. Skill points. 1. Kekkei Genkai. Sharingan 12. The Sharingan is one of the 3 great dojutsu and the Kekkei Genkai of the Uchiha clan. Uchiha Sasuke and Uchiha Itachi are the only natural bearers of this Kekkei Genkai left on the planet. It is awakened normally under extreme stress such as fear for one's life as in Sasuke's case. While this Sharingan is awakened, the user cannot use it yet in its single tomo state.
Plus 12% learning capability plus 12% analytical skills. So, his Sharingan was actually already awakened but he couldn't use it yet, huh? So, Uchiha-kun, can you use your Kekkei Genkai yet? Asked Naruto with a grin as she circled the boy who had recovered by now and glared at her. She could see a flash of red in those eyes. Interesting. What would you know dead last? Snapped the boy angrily as he picked up his 2 kunai he had dropped earlier due to her strike. A lot more than you think. And this dead last just hit you hard enough to make you double over, so I think that is a good reason to stop calling me that, Teme. Stated Naruto with a smirk of her own. She punched a whopping 200 points out of him, even a bit more, with a single hit of her training bow. Besides, never looked at my eyes much, huh? Added Naruto, which drew his confusion.
You see, no one knows my parents, so it did come as a surprise when I awakened this. Smirked Naruto as she formed a half-ram seal with her right hand. Byakugan, she shouted, her veins bulging around her eyes. Now with the Kekkei Genkai active, she could tell that Sasuke was flooding his body with chakra, and she also could tell he was panicking.
How do you have the Byakugan? You are not from a ninja clan, exclaimed the boy, enraged that even she had a dojutsu that worked. Naruto picked the explanation they worked out a while ago. Well, no one knows my parents, do they? For all that is known, one of them could have been a Uchiha. Just so happens that I appear to have been descended from a line of hyuga whose Byakugan was lost until I awakened mine. Because of that my eyes look different now. Explained Naruto with a smirk on her face while the other boy growled at her cocky attitude. Whatever, that is cheating. Stated Sasuke, confident that he would win for that, but Naruto continued smirking and Iruka didn't interrupt. At his confused look she explained. The Byakugan in itself has no offensive power, it is supplementary only, for taijutsu to be exact. And Kekkei Genkai are generally allowed. But if you are afraid of a beginner at this technique, she trailed off at the end, provocatively as she deactivated the Kekkei Genkai again with her eyes turning back again. Sasuke growled and then dashed forward, but he forgot something. Unless you can get really close, kunai are useless against poles. She brained him so hard with the staff that he flew a few feet back. She flinched at that as he skid to a halt with both kunai flying off. Note to self, no matter the arrogance, he isn't smart enough to keep away from my woodstick. She muttered to herself as Sasuke stood up again, bleeding on the forehead now that she had hit him that hard. Sasuke-kun. Come, horrified shouts from the crowd as Naruto rolled her eyes. Fangirls. They were a true epidemic those days. He will be fine, he is a Uchiha after all, right? Asked Naruto, taunting him once again. One thing she learned was that angry opponents were less concentrated and easier to beat. With a war cry, Sasuke showed that yes, he was this stupid. 2 more whacks to the head later. Naruto stood above an unconscious Uchiha with one foot on his back and turned to the others. Say, do you think he would make a good trophy for my home? I am not sure, he looks a bit too ugly for it. She stated with a smirk while everyone just stared how the dead last beat Uchiha Sasuke in under 4 minutes. It was finally Iruka who reacted first, smiling proudly at the ridiculous progress his student went through. Winner is Uzumaki Naruto, declared Iruka loudly while Naruto smirked as she gave everyone a victory sign. This was a clear sign. Naruto had grown stronger, and she was still growing stronger. Next up are Hyuga Hinata versus Inuzuka Kiba. Announced Iruka, and Hinata stepped up to the ring while her opponent followed. Kiba was a boy their age with short, brown hair and feral, dark eyes. He wore a gray jacket with the hood pulled up. Hinata wore her usual outfit, but hidden under the material were leather pieces that Naruto had put on them to add more defense to it. The battle was one-sided, but again not as people expected. Hinata was the timid, nice one of the class. Never wanting to hurt anyone, often letting herself be hit in spars. Well, now she was showing the dog that was Kiba who was the alpha between the two of them. The battle wasn't brutal, but neither was it gentle from Hinata's side. It looked so easy as she blocked and countered every move Kiba made so easily it looked as if she was bored. To be honest. After sparring for a week with Yugo and Hayate, she was bored. Kiba was like a puppy being compared to a Rottweiler. No offense, but he was anything but threatening to her.
Hinata ultimately just knocked him out with a chop to the neck, having closed just about any tenketsu in his arms she could see anyway. That he could move them at all was a wonder, to be honest. Winner. Hyuga Hinata, proclaimed Iruka, smiling at the astounding progress of the two girls. The others in the class muttered among themselves, cursing that the easy wins were suddenly no longer easy considering how easy they had it against 2 competent opponents.
Fan-freaking-tastic. Gone were the easy wins apparently. Congratulations. You defeated Uchiha Sasuke. Bonus goal. Don't get hit. Reward. 1000 Express. -200 Reputation with Uchiha Sasuke. Uchiha Sasuke Academy. Unlocked for Boss Arena Dungeons. Bonus goal. +500 XP. Naruto accepted the message, and looking to Hinata she saw that she also had the message, but even from a distance she knew that there was no new boss for the arena for them to fight. They still hadn't tried to tackle the enhanced bosses there. Hinata returned to her friend's side and both decided to take on Sasuke later in the arena. He was the strongest boss so far by level, but he also was just a student so far, so he couldn't be as hard as he sounded. XXXXXOOXXXXX. Later at night, Naruto sat at a table where she had her laptop built up. Laptops, and an international data network called Internet, were rather new to the elemental nations. From what the Hokage told her, it was an invention of the Abyss Auction too, to simplify their sales. She had on their website account apparently, it was sent to her by email a while ago.
The account name, which wasn't optional, was The Gamer. She had already changed her password weeks ago but hadn't come to buy anything until now because she was busy and had still to sort out all those jutsu she learned from the scroll. Luckily the Kajbunshin were more than happy to help her sort it out, and so far she had about 10% figured out. Sadly, of those 10%, which meant 300 or so jutsu, she only had access to about 10, half of that was taijutsu styles. All other information was too advanced or she didn't have access yet to them because she didn't have prerequisites. Quite some of them required actually a mastery in Fuin Jutsu in one way or another, others were medical techniques, but she had a bad chakra control. The way things were, even while mastering all exercises, she would need a int stat of over 9,000 to have a chakra control that reduced chakra consumption by over 60%.
She was currently browsing through the collection of scrolls when she found one thing that had grabbed her attention like a fist to the face. Uzumaki clan instruction set. She quickly opened the description. The set, 20 scrolls from Uzushiogakir's Ninja Academy, were offered by Dusty Rock. Apparently the guy was ancient or something if the time since he had been added to the site was anything to go by. The prize for those scrolls, which were apparently sealed with a blood seal only a Uzumaki could open, were 20,000 ryo. She had currently, from various micro-quests and furniture she had made and sold recently, 50,492, so this was way within her budget. She quickly tapped on instant purchase. She could have gone for the auction, but some crazy bunch had already driven that up to 840,205 ryo. Instantly the items were transferred to her inventory and she quickly skimmed through them. 10 of the scrolls were simple instruction on how to train by Uzushio's standards. They were also the largest as they went through a lot more information than any scroll about academy training methods. They didn't teach anything much, but there were many different things that were completely different from what she knew. There were also different chakra exercises, all of them required ridiculous amounts of chakra to be applicable, which she could have done apparently when she was 4 from just the chakra requirements of them. Yes, she had checked her growth curve. Her chakra had a habit of growing before she gained her gamer ability. Constantly grow at that. Because of that her chakra was so gigantic.
Another 6 were instructions on clan unique styles, particularly for Kenjutsu and Taijutsu. If she wasn't mistaken, this would mean Kenjutsu was common in her clan. 3 others contained jutsu, dozens of jutsu with mainly wind and water affinity. There were also quite a number of Kenjutsu-based techniques listed. The final scroll had a seal within it, and when she unsealed the content she was amazed.
There, before her, lay a ninjakin, a katana-like looking sword with a straight, single-edged blade. It was within an ornate scabbard in light blue with a red swirl, the clan symbol, near the blade's crossguard that also had a spiral design on it and was a bit wider than usual. With it appeared text on the scroll in the now empty middle of the seal where previously had been the kanji for Fuin, seal.
Dear Uzumaki survivor, I am Uzumaki Tazum. As of this letter I was the head of the Uzumaki clan. To read this letter and hold the sealed sword in your hands, shows that you are one of our clan. For anyone else breaking the seal would mean death. That you triggered this specific message also shows that you are of the head family of our clan, therefore heir or new head of what may be left of the Uzumaki clan. If you wonder why this scroll is hidden among academy scrolls, I did it knowing that, despite our best efforts, the village is lost. I am in hope that those scrolls find their way one day to you and entrust to you the Hanasaw Raka, Petal Wing, the honor sword of the Uzumaki clan. Be aware that its form will change when handed to a new heir. It is your goal to unlock all 10 stages of the blade to access its full power. I wish you only the best of luck, young Uzumaki, and may you succeed at reuniting our clan. Naruko's eyes had by the end of the message bulged out dangerously, her mouth stood wide open and she couldn't help but stare at the message. The honor blade, a heirloom of her clan. She had known she was the heir, it was one of her perks for crying out loud. But now she had the proof, no one could rebuke this anymore. Hanasaw Raka was literally in her hands. Slowly she removed the blade from its scabbard, met with a strangely translucent blade. In fact, she could see right through it, but touching it felt just like normal steel. Observe. She whispered, and before her appeared the information on the blade. Hanasaw Raka, 0, type, family heirloom, sword. Damage. 5 to 40 special property. Leveling item, indestructible. Description. Hanasaw Raka, as one of the 28 Sho Tenkan, great iron swords, of Uzushiogakir, the legendary honor blades of the 28 families that composed the Uzumaki clan. Hanasaw Raka was the direct heirloom to the main family and passed to the heir of the clan in all. It is also the most powerful when fully awakened. Currently its power will vary between 5 and 40 due to having not yet unraveled its first power. Even so, it is said be comparable to the Monkey Clan's legendary adamantine staffs in hardness and durability, with no known way of destroying them. Naruko's eyes nearly jumped out of their sockets to make sure that it was truly what was written there. That was the base ability.
How broken were the other 10? Right then she noticed 10 sockets in the blade side. It looked as if there was supposed to be something in it, or put in it. She frowned. Perhaps the levels would manifest something. She dismissed the by now rather annoying info that her int and wis went up by a point. So yeah, definitely would fill up with her achievements. Did her ability think she was stupid? Alright, she didn't have the greatest stats at the beginning, but she was approaching fast the top of the class, or second to top, as Shikamaru had a int and wis stat of each over 9,000. XXXXXOOOXXXXX Giko Hayate and Yugo had been a bit put out when, once they restarted lessons on weekend, they found Naruto practice with honest-to-God ninjakin against Hinata. And she wielded it in one hand while keeping her bow staff in the other as if planning to dual wield. The weirdest? As crazy as it sounded, she was actually very good at keeping Hinata at a distance with the bow and trying to hit her with the flat of her sword. The transparent blade though confused both. It made it harder to see the sword itself, but only by a bit. To be honest, the style was a bit sloppy, clearly her attempting to combine a newly learned kenjutsu style, as the stances for the sword usage were still amateurish looking, with the bojutsu the Hokage taught her. She still managed to whack Hinata a good dozen times before Yugo stepped in with Hayate. "Okay girls, what is this about?" asked Yugo with a smile as her two pupils turned to them with smiles on their faces. Yugo also noted the samurai-style attached scabbard, very ornamental, and now that she looked, so was the sword itself actually. Naruko-chan wanted to try this out, something about a show she watched on the internet where someone wielded 2 spears. Explained Hinata while rubbing her left upper arm. Naruko aimed always at the shoulder area to her chagrin. "And where did you get this sword, Naruko-chan? It doesn't look like an ordinary weapon, asked Hayate, eyeing the sword which had spirals on it. "This is Hana-sa-raka, the honor sword of the Uzumaki and the heirloom of the main family." "Wah. Hayate-sensei. Yugo-sensei. Why are you fainting? Hello. Wake up." To be continued. XXXXXOOOXXXXX Omake. Thank you, Dusty Rock. XXXXXOOOXXXXX Say thank you letter to Dusty Rock. That is a strange request, stated the auction-hired courier ninja standing before Naruko. "It is very important, sir. He returned something very valuable to my clan to me, so I want to thank him," explained Naruko with a smile on her face, a smile that would make a certain cat envious. The man shrugged before taking the letter and payment. "Sure, whatever, little lady." With that, he was off. The auction and its employees were the only ones who knew the identity of all people it catered to. The youngest yet, the probably most OP natural ability user on this planet, was also the weirdest. In Iwagakure, Dusty Rock was sitting in his office. He was a short man, and by short I mean, Naruko looks tall compared to Shorty McGrumbird. He had Asian, aristocratic-looking hairstyle, a short pointed beard, and also a similar pair of mustaches under his large, red nose. He was just floating off his chair, yes floating, to get a book from a shelf when a whooshing sound announced the arrival of a ninja. Looking to him, he immediately recognized him as an Abyss courier ninja who were only identifiable by the Abyss auctions mark on their uniforms. "Tsushikage-sama. A letter from the gamer. She insisted for it to be delivered fast," explained the man, placing the letter down before vanishing again. Dusty Rock, or rather, Oenoki the Tsushikage of Iwagakure, frowned until he remembered that the gamer was the person who bought that old set of scrolls he had found to be loot from Uzushiogakure all the way back in the war. He still was sad for the destruction of so many lives, but their fate would have been sealed in the third if they hadn't destroyed the village. Not to say that the pyre whose victory they achieved with Kumo and Kirigakure as their allies was much better. Uzumaki were terrifying for their seals, but sadly they were even better prankster and used that for traps. Half the loses were because people tripped over tripwires, and fell into spikes that come out of the ground. Or rolling boulders. Damn those Uzumaki and their traps. He shuddered remembering one child's acid water balloon trap. Anyway, he opened the letter and adjusted his glasses. "Dear Dusty Rock. In the name of my clan I thank you for returning Hana-sa-raka to the rightful heir," shouted Oenoki, and his screams attracted his attendants as he had a stroke. The Uzumaki were still alive and kicking. "God damn it. Thanks."